This is Cerebral Cinema. Movies of the mind.
What's the matter? What is it?
It's a case for Nick Carter, master detective.
Yes, it's a case for that most famous of all manhunters, the detective whose ability at solving crime is unequaled in the history of detective fiction, Nick Carter, master detective.
Beginning the curious adventure called Kidnapped for Sale, for Nick Carter and the mystery of the missing babies.
But I must see Mr. Carter at once.
I'm sorry, but he isn't here just
But
now.
I must see him. Isn't there any way you can get in touch with him?
No, but I expect him back any minute now. Wouldn't you care to wait, Mrs.?
Anders, Mary Anders. He's got to help me. He's just got to.
Don't worry, Mrs. Anders. I'm sure he will. I'm Patsy Bowen, Mr. Carter's secretary. Don't you want to tell me what's wrong?
It's my baby.
Oh, there, Mrs. Anders, please don't cry. I'm sure everything will turn out all right. Now, why don't you start from the beginning and tell me what's happened?
All right. My husband is a defense worker in the South. A few weeks ago,
Oh, that must be Mr. Carter now. Oh, Nick,
Hello, Patsy. Oh, so you have a visitor.
this is Mrs. Anders, Nick. She's in trouble, and she's come to you for help.
Well, I'll be glad to help you if I can, Mrs. Anders. Just what is the trouble?
well, as I told your secretary, my husband is a defense worker who has a temporary job in the Texas oil fields. A few weeks ago, I received a letter saying he was seriously ill. Naturally, I was frantic and wanted to go to him at once, but I couldn't take my baby with me. He's only 8 months old, and there wouldn't be any place for him in the town where my husband works.
I see. So what did you do?
Well, I had no relatives to leave the baby with, so I looked around for a nursing home that could take care of him while I was gone, but they were all jammed to overflowing and couldn't board my baby. When the fourth nursing home turned me down, I was ready to give up. But just as I was leaving the building, a man carrying a medical bag spoke to me.
Pardon me, I couldn't help overhearing your conversation with the clerk at the reception desk. Allow me to introduce myself. I'm Dr. Arnold. I'm on the medical board of this nursing home, and
Well,
I saw how disappointed you were when the clerk told you that they had no room for your baby.
I'm at my wit's end, Doctor. I've simply got to find a place to leave him. My husband is seriously ill, and I must go to him.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, perhaps I can help you, Mrs. Anders. Have you ever thought of leaving your child in private care?
In private care? But I don't know anyone in this city.
Well, it just happens that I know a couple whom I'm sure would be glad to take care of your child.
Oh, but I wouldn't want to leave my baby with strangers.
Oh, I think that if you met this couple, you'd feel differently about it. Recently, they lost their own child, and I rather think they'd be very happy to take care of yours if you'd permit them to.
If I could only be sure they'd give him the right kind of care.
Well, I'll tell you what we'll do. This couple's name is Gilbert. Mr. Gilbert has an office in the Stanley building. Why don't you bring your child to his office tomorrow morning about 10 o'clock? I'll arrange to have his wife there at the same time. You can talk with them and then decide whether you'd like to let them take care of your baby.
Can't do any harm to talk to them, see what they're like.
Splendid. Here, now, I'll write Mr. Gilbert's address on this card. There. Oh, I'm sure you'll like them, Mrs. Anders.
I hope so, Doctor, and thank you for your kindness.
Not at all, Mrs. Anders. These days, it's up to people to help each other. Well, I'll see you tomorrow morning at 10.
And did you keep the appointment, Mrs. Anders?
Yes, I did, Mr. Carter. Dr. Arnold and his friends were there waiting for me.
Good morning, Mrs. Anders. Allow me to introduce Mrs. Gilbert and Mr. Gilbert.
How do you do?
Hello, Mrs. Anders.
My dear, I'm so happy to meet you. And I presume this is the baby?
Yes, Mrs. Gilbert.
Oh, he's beautiful.
Say, he is a good-looking baby, isn't he?
Martin, be careful. You wake him.
Oh, he's a very sound sleeper.
Do you think I might hold him?
Of course. Here you are, Mrs. Gilbert.
Thank you. Oh, it's like holding my own little boy. Will you let me take care of him while you're gone, Mrs. Anders? I promise I'll look after him just as though he were my own.
What, Mrs. Gilbert,
Please say you'll let me take care of him for you.
Well, when Dr. Arnold just spoke to me about leaving him with strangers, I didn't like the idea, but Now that I've met you, I can see you're the kind of people who love children.
Oh,
and-
Mrs. Anders, I assure you he'll receive the very best of care.
Why, of course he will. We have a lovely nursery at home. We give him everything he wants.
Well, I was certain that you people would like each other. I'm glad to see that everything is settled.
Oh, but we've said nothing about paying for his board.
Oh, we wouldn't dream of asking anything for taking care of him. We're doing it just because we want to.
Why, of course. We won't hear of such a thing.
Oh, you're both very kind. I only hope that someday my husband and I will be able to repay you.
What train are you taking, Mrs. Anders?
Well, I want to make the train that leaves at noon.
Oh, you'll have to hurry then.
But I'm sure you want to kiss your son goodbye, Mrs. Anders.
Goodbye, darling. Mother's going to miss you dreadfully, but she'll soon be back for you, just as soon as she can. Then, Mr. Carter, I left for Texas. When I reached my husband, I found he was much better than I'd expected. I spent 2 weeks with him, and by that time he was well enough so I could come back. I got in just an hour ago.
I see.
Have you seen your baby yet?
No. I went to Mr. Gilbert's office the first thing to tell him I was back and wanted my baby. When I entered the office, Mr. Gilbert wasn't there, but Dr. Arnold was.
And what did Dr. Arnold say when you told him you'd come for your son?
He told me that he'd never seen me before, that he knew nothing whatever about my baby.
What?
At first I thought he was joking, but he wasn't. He denied ever having seen me or my baby.
And what happened then?
I asked to see Mr. Gilbert, but he said there wasn't anyone by that name there. I pleaded with him to give me back my baby, but he kept insisting he didn't know what I was talking about. Mr. Carter, what can I do? How can I get my baby back
Oh,
again?
there, Mrs. Anders, please. I'm sure everything's going to be all right.
Mrs. Anders, I'm afraid you've been made a victim of a new and vicious racket. That of selling babies.
Nick.
Yes.
Selling babies.
Yes, selling babies. You see, these days, a great number of people are eager to adopt babies, but there are comparatively few available for adoption. As a result, there are many people who are willing to pay $1,000 or more for a child. This has brought into being a new type of criminal, one who deals in selling babies.
But, Nick, where do they get these babies? You mean they steal them?
Yes, Patsy, that's exactly what I mean. These unscrupulous men are all over town on the lookout for women who, under emotional stress, will part with their babies.
But, Mr. Carter, Dr. Arnold looked so respectable, and well, he said that he was connected with that nursing home.
Without going any further, Mrs. Anders, I can assure you that he isn't a doctor at all, but was merely posing as one.
What?
That's part of his scheme to get babies from their mothers. And the nursing home is one of the places where he makes his contacts.
Then you mean this man Arnold has sold my child to the Gilbert couple?
No, Mrs. Anders, not to them, as they're undoubtedly part of his gang. No, the Gilberts will pose as the legitimate parents of your baby and will sell it to another couple who are eager to adopt a child.
But, Mr. Carter, if this man Arnold gets away, I may never find my baby again.
No, Mrs. Anders, don't worry, please. I'll do my best to recover your child for you. Up to now, I've been unable to take any action against these unscrupulous gangsters because I have never been able to get any really concrete evidence against them. But in your case, there's no question about it.
But what are you going to do, Mr. Carter?
Well, our first move will be to go down to that office and see this man, find out what he has to say for himself. And we better hurry, because he won't waste any time clearing out now that he knows you're back.
Shall I go with you, Mr. Carter?
No, Mrs. Anders, I want you to go home and rest.
All right. But you will let me hear from you soon.
Why, certainly I will. Just as soon as I can tell you something definite.
This building gives me the creeps, Nick. It's so old and dark.
Yes. The type building that houses mainly fly-by-nights and other shady enterprises. Only hope we aren't too late.
Fourth floor, please.
This is it, Patsy. Room 412.
Nick, there's a light in the office.
Yes. Well, here goes. Good evening.
Oh, I'm afraid you have the wrong office.
No, I don't think so, Mr. Arnold.
Nick, he's packing everything in that briefcase.
Yes, I see.
What do you want?
Arnold, I represent Mary Anders, whose child you took a little more than 2 weeks ago.
Mary Anders? I don't know anyone by that name. And what would I want with a child?
I think you know what I'm talking about. And I want that baby back.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Why are you staring at me like that?
Arnold, I never forget a face. And I'm sure I've seen your face somewhere before.
That's nonsense. I never saw you before in my life. Now, kindly get out of here and let me finish my...
Yes. Now I remember you. 10 years ago, September 1934, you were convicted of blackmail and sent up the river for 5 years. And I supplied the evidence that clinched the case.
So you're the guy I've got to thank for that stretch. Oh, then you must be Nick Carter. The cops told me he was the one that pinned it on me.
Right, Arnold. And if you don't turn the Anders baby over to me at once, I'll make it my business to see that you go back for a real stretch this time.
Oh, yeah? Carter, I've been waiting a long time to pay you back what I owe you. This is one time you ran into more than you bargained for. Okay, Dutch.
I'm right behind you, Carter, so you and your girlfriend better get your hands up fast.
Nick, look out.
Make a move for your gun, I'll blast you. Yeah, it's better.
This isn't going to help you any, Arnold.
No, we'll see about that. Got his gun, Dutch?
Yeah.
Now, Mr. Carter, you're going to get what you should have gotten years ago. It's too bad the girl has to be in on it, too.
Shall I let him have it, Arnold?
No. Gun might bring the night watchman. We want to do everything on a quiet basis.
Let my secretary go, Arnold. She had nothing to do with sending you up.
I'm afraid I couldn't do that. She knows too much now.
What are you going to do with us?
Do you see that vault in the wall over there?
Yes.
Well, up to now, I've never had anything that I wanted to put into it. Now, I think I have.
Say, that's a great idea, Doc.
Yes. It's a beautiful vault. Fireproof, waterproof, and airtight. You and your charming companion, Mr. Carter, won't last very long in there.
Nick.
Steady, Betsy.
All right. Start moving, you two. And no funny business or you get it in the back. Go on. Get in that ball. Ladies first, Carter.
You know you'll have to pay for this, Arnold.
Maybe, and maybe not. Well, Mr. Carter, it's been most pleasant knowing you two. Goodbye.
Nick, there's not much room in here, is there?
No. Wait till I turn on my flashlight. There.
Why, this wall is hardly big enough to turn around in. Oh, Nick, the oxygen will be gone in no time.
Now, Patsy, you mustn't get excited. Just uses up the oxygen that much faster.
We've got to get out of here quick. It'll only be a matter of minutes.
Take it easy, Patsy. Take it easy. Let's see how solid these walls are. They're solid, all right. Must be a foot thick.
Even if we called for help, it wouldn't do any good. No one could hear us.
And the floor's solid, too. And the vault's completely empty. Nothing we could use to help us get out.
Nick, the air's getting close already. What are we going to do?
I don't know, Patsy. But there has to be some way out of this vault.
Well, if you don't find it soon, it'll be too late. Oh, Nick, I'm afraid. I'm scared. I feel as if I...
Oh, easy, Patsy. Don't let it get you down, please.
But I can't get my breath, Nick. I can't breathe.
Having locked Nick and Patsy in a soundproof, airtight vault and left them there to suffocate, Arnold is sure that he has removed all threat to himself in this new and heartless racket. And it does look as if Nick has met a problem that will tax even his cleverness to the utmost to solve. With only minutes left to live, how is Nick Carter going to free himself and Patsy from the death trap they are in? Listen tomorrow and find out. In the strange adventures of Nick Carter, Master Detective, Nick Carter is played by Lon Clark, Patsy by Helen Choate. The stories are written by Bob Arthur and David Cogan. Original music is played by Lou White. The entire production is under the direction of Jock McGregor. Tomorrow night at the same time, listen to the further adventures of Nick Carter in the case entitled
Kidnapped for Sale. For Nick Carter and the mystery of the missing babies.
The Return of Nick Carter, a copyrighted feature of Street and Smith Publications, Incorporated, is produced in the studios of WOR and is broadcast over most of these stations, Monday through Friday at 9:15 p.m. Eastern War Time. And don't forget that the adventures of Nick's adopted son, Chick Carter, are broadcast over most of these stations, Mondays through Fridays at 5:30 p.m. Eastern War Time. This is Mutual.
What's the matter? What is it?
It's a case for Nick Carter, master detective.
Yes, it's a case for that most famous of all manhunters, the detective whose ability at solving crime is unequaled in the history of detective fiction. Nick Carter, Master Detective. Continuing the curious adventure called
Kidnapped for Sale, for Nick Carter and the mystery of the missing babies.
In an effort to recover a stolen baby, Nick Carter and his secretary, Patsy, call an office occupied by a crook named Arnold. Arnold, aided by Dutch, another member of the gang, overpowers them and locks them in an airtight vault built into the wall of the office. Knowing that suffocation threatens them in a very few minutes, Patsy becomes panicky.
Nick, I'm afraid. I'm scared. I feel as if I...
Now, easy, Patsy. Don't let it get you.
I can't get my breath, Nick. I can't breathe.
Patsy, listen to me. Breathe deeply.
All right, Nick.
That's it. You're more frightened than anything else. The air isn't gone yet.
You're right, Nick. I'm sorry I let myself go that way.
That's the girl. Now, let's see. There must be some way out of this vault. There's got to be.
How much time have we got, Nick, before
I should say the air in here ought to last us about 10 minutes.
That isn't very long, is it?
No, it isn't. But I hope we'll be out by that time. Well, the walls are all solid. Floor's solid, too. Take a look at the ceiling. It's solid, too. Patsy, look.
I don't see anything.
There's an automatic sprinkler nozzle set in the ceiling in case of fire.
Oh, yes, I see it now.
Patsy, that sprinkler may get us out of here.
Get us out?
Yes.
Nick, how?
If I hold a lighted match under the nozzle, the heat will set off the automatic sprinkler system in this vault. And someplace in the building, an alarm will go off, and it'll bring help in no time.
Oh, but, Nick, my new hat will get soaking wet.
Patsy, it's better than suffocating. Let's see, where are my matches?
You got them?
Yeah, now strike one. There. Now, if I stand on my toes, I can just reach the sprinkler nozzle. Yeah, there. Just have to hold the match to it long enough for it to heat up.
How long will it take?
Oh, just a few seconds. Then it should...
Oh, Nick, the water's cold.
Yes, Patsy, but listen. You can hear the alarm ringing somewhere in the building.
Yeah, I hear it. How long would it take for them to find it?
Only a few minutes, Patsy. The indicator on the sprinkler system will show them the troubles on this floor. They'll have no difficulty tracing us down from there.
Oh, Nick,
What is it, Patsy?
the water, it's up to my ankles.
Well, I know. The vault's airtight, and that means it's also watertight.
But, Nick, it's rising so fast.
I know, Patsy, but it was either this or suffocation.
But, Nick, suppose nobody finds us until the water's over.
Steady, Patsy, steady. All we can do now is wait and hope.
Come in. Ah, it's you, Arnold.
Yes, Chief. I understand you wanted to see me.
Yes, I do. Sit down.
Thanks, Chief.
Listen, Arnold. During the past few months, I've built this baby-selling racket up to a point where we're making $1,000 out of it. And we've got customers for every baby we can lay our hands on.
I know, Chief. I've been doing my best to get more of them.
Yeah, so I understand. But weren't you instructed never to take a baby unless the mother signed it over to you, so the police would have nothing on us?
Well, that's what I've been doing, Chief.
Yes? And what's this I hear about the Anders woman? Huh? Did you get her to sign a release?
Well, no, Chief, but it wouldn't have worked in her case.
You fool. You should have let her alone then.
I know, Chief, but I had a customer who was willing to pay $3,000 for a baby boy like hers now. I couldn't pass up money like that, could I?
Do you know that the Anders woman went to Nick Carter for help?
Yes, I know that, but...
You crazy fool.
But, Chief...
Do you know what it'll mean if Carter decides to investigate our business?
But, Chief, Nick Carter isn't going to do any more investigating, ever.
What do you mean?
A little while ago, he came to my office in the Stanley building. Before he could start anything,
Dutch and I took care of him.
You mean you got rid of him?
Sure. Dutch and I locked Carter and his secretary in the office vault. Oh, they couldn't have lasted more than 10 minutes in that vault. It's airtight.
You're sure they won't get out? Carter's no fool.
Oh, neither am I, Chief. That vault is fireproof and airtight.
Nick Carter dead. Sounds unbelievable.
He's dead, all right, Chief. And I cleaned everything out of the office, too. The police can't trace a thing to us. I didn't leave a thing behind.
Good. You better have your apartment cleaned out, too.
All right, Chief.
I only hope you're right about getting rid of Carter. He was the one man who could have ruined everything for us.
Of course I'm right, Chief. From now on, you can forget about Nick Carter. He finally walked into something that was more than he could handle.
Nick, why doesn't someone come? The water's up to my waist.
I'm certain that by this time the alarm's been heard.
Then where are they? At the rate the water's rising, the vault will be full in a few minutes.
Steady, Patsy. You mustn't lose your nerve.
But, Nick...
Perhaps if I rap with my flashlight on the door, it'll attract somebody's attention.
If there's anyone out there to hear it...
Well, that's what I'm hoping, Patsy.
Oh, Nick, maybe there isn't anyone in the building. Maybe nobody heard the alarm.
Patsy, you're forgetting the elevator operator brought us up. And then I heard Arnold say there was a night watchman. I'll try rapping again.
Who's there?
Oh, Nick, thank heaven someone's out there.
Yes. Can you hear us?
Yes, I hear you. Where are you?
We're locked up in the vault.
Did you say locked in the vault?
Yes. See if you can open it.
What are you doing in there?
We're locked in. See if you can open the vault door.
Oh, all right. No, can't open it. It's locked, and I don't know the combination.
Oh, Nick.
Hold it, Patsy. If you do what I say, I think you can get it open.
Yeah, but I don't know nothing about safe. I better call the police.
No, wait. By the time you get the police, we'll be dead.
What are you going to do, Nick?
If I were on the outside of the safe, Patsy, I could open it by turning the dial and listening to the clicks of the combination. I've done that often enough before. But locked in here the way we are, I'm going to let him turn the dial while I listen for the clicks of the tumblers.
Oh, Nick, that's a wonderful idea, but hurry.
Yes, what do you want me to do?
Now listen carefully. Turn the dial of the safe slowly to the right. When I hear the tumblers fall, I'll tell you to stop. You understand?
No, don't make sense to me.
Will you please do as I say to save our lives?
Oh, yes, I guess so.
All right. Now start turning the dial slowly to the right.
To the right. All right. Yes, I'm doing it.
Keep turning. Keep turning. Stop.
What do I do now?
Start turning the dial slowly to the left.
To the left, yes. All right. Here we are.
Stop.
Oh, hurry, Nick, hurry.
All right. What next?
Now start turning the dial slowly to the right.
Okay. I'm turning them.
A little more.
Oh, Nick.
Stop. All right. Now turn the handle of the vault.
What'd you say?
Try the handle of the safe.
Oh, all right.
Oh, Nick, he can't open it.
He's got to.
What do we do?
Maybe he's turning it the wrong way. Listen. Turn the handle the other way and pull.
Yes, all right. The other way.
Oh, Nick, we're safe.
Yes, and not a minute too soon.
Hey, what are you two doing in that vault? Who are you?
I'm Nick Carter. Afraid we haven't got time to explain. Oh, by the way, have you seen Arnold, the man who rents this office?
Arnold?
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Carter. I saw him and another man leave a little while ago. I had a couple of bags with him.
From the looks of things, he's cleaned out the office thoroughly.
I gotta go and turn off that sprinkler. It'll be flooding the place if I don't. If you folks want me, I'll be in the basement.
All right. Oh, and thanks for what you've done.
Oh, I should say so. You saved our lives.
Oh, that's all right, folks. But if I was you, I wouldn't go getting locked in that vault again.
Don't
Might
worry.
get you in trouble.
We won't. All right, now, Patsy. Let's look over the office.
Oh, Nick, I'm
There's
soaked.
always a chance that Arnold may have left something behind.
All right, but there isn't much to look over.
Well, see if you can find anything at all. The most trivial object may give us a lead.
Well, there's nothing in this closet at all.
Hey, This looks as if it might give us a clue.
What's that, Nick?
This newspaper I found in the wastebasket.
How is that a clue?
You notice the top of the front page of this paper? See what's been written on it?
Why, it's just the number and the letter 3D written in pencil.
Exactly. Usually done by delivery clerks in apartment houses.
Mm-hmm.
Patsy, unless I'm mistaken, this paper is delivered every morning to someone who lives somewhere in apartment 3D.
Why, of course.
I have a hunch that we'll find Arnold lives in an apartment numbered 3D. All right, let's look through this desk. Perhaps you'll find something else.
Well, there's nothing in this drawer.
No, nor in this one either.
There's nothing in this but some packs of matches.
Let's see what's... Did you say packs of matches?
Yes, Nick, here they are. 5 packs.
Let's see them. Uh-huh. All of them advertise the Edgewood Arms. That's an exclusive apartment house, not far from here.
Nick, you don't think that...
Patsy, I have a hunch that Arnold lives in apartment 3D at the Edgewood Arms. Come on. Let's find out if my hunch is right.
Well, this is 3D, Nick.
Yes. And here's Arnold's name on the door.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm. My hunch was right. All right, ring the bell, see if anyone's home.
Doesn't seem to be anyone in.
Well, this lock doesn't look as though it'll be too difficult to pick. Let's see. Mm-hmm. There we are. Come in, Patsy.
Okay.
I'll turn on the lights.
Looks as though he'd cleaned this place out, too. He's a fast worker, that guy.
Yeah. Afraid he's come and gone. Looks as if he burned some papers up before he cleared out.
Hmm.
There are ashes in the fireplace.
Do you think they're of any value?
It's hard to tell. I'll put them in this little box. I'll examine them later at my laboratory.
Well, there's nothing at all over here in this desk. Been cleaned out completely.
Now, wait a minute. Let me turn on this table lamp. Perhaps you can see better.
Nick, what is it?
Patsy, this lamp is still warm. Someone was in this room just a few minutes ago.
Oh, you don't suppose he's still here, do you?
I don't know. There's only one way to find out.
Nick, did you hear that?
Yes. Someone's opened a window in the next room. Patsy, stay here. I'm going to find out who it is before he gets away.
Oh, but, Nick, you haven't got a gun.
I'll have to take my chances, Patsy.
Oh, but, Nick, you make... Nick!
This certainly is one case in which Nick is having difficulty finding clues. At every turn, someone seems to be ahead of him, destroying the evidence. The recovery of the missing baby, which was apparently stolen by a new and particularly vicious criminal gang, seems to be as far away as ever. And now, Nick unarmed is walking into the fire from a blazing gun in the hand of an unseen killer. The answer to the riddle may depend on who is doing the shooting and why. Listen tomorrow. In the strange adventures of Nick Carter, Master Detective, Nick Carter is impersonated by Lon Clark, Patsy by Helen Choate. The stories are written by Bob Arthur and David Cogan. Original music is played by Lou White. The entire production is under the direction of Jock McGregor. Tomorrow night at the same time, listen to the further adventures of Nick Carter in the case entitled
Kidnapped for Sale, or Nick Carter and the Mystery of the Missing Babies.
The Return of Nick Carter, a copyrighted feature of Street and Smith Publications, Incorporated, is produced in the studios of WOR and is broadcast over most of these stations, Mondays through Fridays at 9:15 p.m. Eastern War Time. And don't forget, the adventures of Nick's adopted son, Chick Carter, are broadcast over most of these stations, Monday through Friday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern War Time. This is Mutual.
It's a case for Nick Carter, master detective.
Yes, it's a case for that most famous of all manhunters, the detective whose ability at solving crime is unequaled in the history of detective fiction. Nick Carter, master detective. Continuing the case entitled
Kidnapped for Sale, or Nick Carter and the mystery of the missing babies.
On the trail of a ring that is stealing babies and selling them for adoption, Nick Carter and his secretary Patsy are searching for evidence in the apartment of Doc Arnold, a member of the gang who has tried to kill them. Nick hears someone moving about in the next room, and as he goes in to investigate, unarmed, he runs into a blaze of gunfire.
Oh, Nick! Nick, are you all right?
Yes, Patsy. I dropped to the floor and he missed me.
Where is he?
He went out the window and down the fire escape. Stay here. I'm going after him.
Oh, Nick, don't go out on that fire escape. You haven't got a chance without a gun.
Oh, no use anyway, Patsy. He's down on the street already, running toward that parked car.
Oh, Nick, he's turning around to shoot.
Hit the floor, Patsy. You all right?
Yes, are you?
Yeah. Well, you made a clean getaway.
Oh, Nick, how could you have been so foolish as to try to capture him unarmed? Why, he might have killed you.
I had to take the chance, Patsy. Those papers he was carrying away might have been valuable to us.
Did you recognize who he was?
Yes, it was Dutch.
Oh.
Arnold's gunman. The fellow who locked us in the safe.
Look, Nick, he ransacked this room thoroughly. Must have been packing up everything in here while we were in the next room.
I'm afraid you're right, Patsy, but let's look around anyway. Perhaps in his hurry, he may have left something behind that'll be valuable to us.
His writing table's been cleaned out.
Mm-hmm. Nothing in this bureau either.
He seems to have gotten everything.
Well, afraid we're wasting our time here. Not only is Dutch a fast worker, he's a thorough one.
Nick, where do you think Dutch will go from here?
I imagine he'll join Arnold somewhere.
Do you think they'll try to leave the city?
They may, now that they know I'm onto them. But we're not going to give them the chance if we can help it.
What do you mean?
We're going down to headquarters and have Riley send out an alarm for both Arnold and Dutch.
Gosh, Nick, this baby-stealing racket's a dirty business.
It's worse than that, Patsy.
Well, Mrs. Anders said she wouldn't want to live if you couldn't get her baby back to her.
I'll do my best.
Nick, why do you keep watching your mirror like that?
I'm not certain, but I have a feeling we're being followed.
Followed?
Yes. Traffic's so heavy, though, it's difficult to tell.
No, well...
No, don't look back, Patsy. If we are being followed, we don't want them to know we're aware of it.
Perhaps when you make the turn to headquarters at the next corner, you'll be able to tell.
Yes. We're coming to it now. We'll soon know. Here goes.
Oh, were we followed?
Oh, 2 cars turned in after us. I still can't tell.
Here's headquarters.
Yes. When we stop, Patsy, watch those 2 cars when they go past. See if you recognize anybody in either of them.
Okay.
Now watch them as they go by.
Nobody in that car I ever saw before.
Look, Patsy, in that one.
That was Dutch.
Yes. And he must still have the papers he took from Arnold's apartment. He hasn't had time to get rid of them. We're going after him.
Oh, hurry, Nick, hurry. He's quite a way ahead.
I know, Patsy, I know, but there's too much traffic here to go much faster.
Nick, he knows he's being followed. He's speeding up.
Oh, if only traffic weren't so heavy. Can't get by the half-dozen cars between Dutch and us.
Oh, hurry. The light's changing to red.
No. Couldn't make it.
Oh, Nick, Dutch got through, too. If only those cars hadn't blocked us.
And by the time the light changes, it'll be too late. I'm afraid he's given us a slip again.
Yeah, and he's got all those papers he took from Arnold's room. We can kiss him goodbye now.
Seems like it.
Nick, after the way Dutch ran away from us when we were in Arnold's apartment, why do you think he followed us down here?
It's always a good point to know your enemy's next move. And Dutch wanted to know what ours would be.
The light's turned green now.
Yes. And our friend Dutch is completely out of sight. Well, Patsy, that leaves us nothing to do but go back and call on Lieutenant Riley. Oh, Riley.
Good evening, Lieutenant.
Well, hello, Nick and Patsy. What brings you down here?
Riley, what do you know about the baby selling racket that sprung up in town these past months?
Oh, plenty, Nick. We ain't been able to do anything about it.
What do you mean by that?
Nick, there's hardly a day goes by that some poor mother don't come to headquarters and tell me how she was persuaded to part with her baby.
Oh, how awful.
Usually she let the baby go because she couldn't afford to support it. But after the baby's been gone a few days, she realizes just how much it means to her. And then she comes down here and asks us to help her get it back again.
I see. Then what do you do, Lieutenant?
Well, sometimes she has the address of the men who took her baby. We bring them in.
Ever get anything on him?
Nothing. Nothing at all. These men always have a release signed by the mother giving them permission to take the baby.
You mean that there's nothing you can do about it, Lieutenant?
No, not as long as they have a release signed by the mother.
These men you bring in for questioning, have you ever seen any of them before?
Oh, sure, Nick. They all have records as swindlers and confidence men. They get into the baby-selling racket because it's easy money.
And you haven't been able to find out who's behind them?
No, but I can tell you this, Nick. It's somebody big. The minute one of these guys is brought in, a lawyer shows up to take care of them.
Seem to have built up quite an organization.
It's growing all the time.
Isn't there any way you can break it up, Lieutenant?
We can't touch them until we get some concrete evidence that they're operating outside the law.
Well, Riley, I think I've got something on them this time.
You have, Nick? What's happened?
Earlier this evening, a woman by the name of Mrs. Anders came to my office. Seems a man named Arnold had induced her to leave her baby with some friends of his while she went away on a trip.
Mm-hmm.
When she came back, she found he wouldn't return the baby, denied ever having seen her before.
Nick, we can't hold these men because legally they're always in the clear.
Yes, but in Mrs. Anders' case, there was a slip-up. Arnold didn't get a release from Mrs. Anders.
He didn't, Nick?
No.
Nick, that's great. We can really get him for that.
We'll have to move fast, though, Riley. I suggest you send out a general alarm for him.
Sure, Nick. Have you got his description?
Well, you probably have his record and files.
Huh?
This isn't the first time I've run into him. In September 1934, I got the evidence on him on a blackmail charge, which sent him to prison for 5 years.
Do you remember what name he was convicted under?
Yes. That time, he was using the name of Edward Morelli.
Fine. I'll have one of the boys see if we have anything on him in the files. Just a minute, Nick.
Yes, Lieutenant?
See if you can find anything in the files on a confidence man by the name of Arnold. He did a blackmail rap in 34 under the name of Edward Morelli.
Yes, sir. I'll look it up.
If we've got anything, Nick, it shouldn't take more than a few minutes to find it. Then we can really get going on this thing.
Come in.
Chief.
You look upset, Dutch. Is anything wrong?
Plenty, Chief.
Let's have it.
Nick Carter ain't dead.
Not dead. But he must be. Arnold locked him in an airtight vault earlier tonight.
Sure, Chief, and I saw him do it. But Nick Carter's still alive.
But Arnold said no one could last more than 10 minutes in that vault. And Arnold was the only one who knew the combination.
Oh, I don't know how he got out, but the main thing is he did. He came to Arnold's apartment while I was cleaning it out like you told me.
How did he get there so quickly?
I don't know, Chief. All I know is that just as I was finishing the joint, the doorbell rang. Actually, I didn't pay any attention to it, but then I heard somebody picking a lock.
And what happened?
And Nick Carter and his secretary came into the apartment. Somehow Carter got wise that I was there, too. I got all my stuff packed up, and I got out in a fire escape just as he came into the bedroom.
Did you let him have it?
I took a couple of shots at him, but I missed. Before he could pull a gun, I made my getaway.
That fool, Arnold. This is all his fault.
Chief, there's something else I think you ought to know.
You mean more blunders were made?
No. Oh, what I'm trying to tell you is that when Carter left Arnold's apartment, I trailed him, see? He went to police headquarters.
Headquarters?
Yeah.
That means Carter must know something. The police don't worry me. But with Carter on our trail, things aren't going to be so easy.
What are we going to do, Chief?
Call Arnold for me.
Okay, he's right outside. Hey, Arnold. Chief wants to see you.
All right, Dutch. Oh, hello, Chief.
Come in, Arnold. Sit down. Well, Arnold, not only did you bungle in the matter of the Anders baby, but you failed when you tried to get rid of Nick Carter. Carter is still alive.
What? Why, he can't be. No one could have gotten out of that vault.
Carter did. Right at this moment, he's down at police headquarters.
Well, even so, Chief, what can he
You
possibly...
fool. If you hadn't blundered with the Anders woman in the first place, Carter wouldn't have a thing on us.
What can we do now, Chief?
We've got to find some way to make Carter drop his investigations.
Do you want me to see him?
Nah. Talking wouldn't do any good. He's got to be stopped. And I think I've got an idea. Yes. I'm going to give Carter a warning he'll never forget.
Lieutenant, here are the records on Arnold or Morelli.
Right, Sergeant. That's all.
Yes, sir.
Well, Nick, here's Arnold's record. And here's his picture, too.
Well, that's Arnold, all right. I can never forget his face, especially not after tonight.
That's quite a record.
And I'll have an alarm sent out for him right away. With any luck, we may be able to pick him up within 24 hours.
Fine. And the minute you do, Riley, give me a call.
Okay.
If we can bring him in, we can get enough out of him to round up the rest of the gang. Oh, now, where's my key?
Fine detective. Can't even find the key to his own house.
Quiet. Ah, here it is. Well, Patsy, it's been quite an evening.
Quite a night. Being locked in a vault and then shot at later is too much for just an evening. Boy, I'll be glad when Riley gets Arnold behind bars. Perhaps then Mrs. Anders can get her baby back.
I hope so, Patsy.
Oh, by the way, Nick, you promised Mrs. Anders to let her know just as soon as we found out anything.
But we don't know anything positive yet.
Oh, I suppose you're right, but I keep thinking of poor Mrs. Anders sitting there alone waiting for word about the baby.
All right, Patsy. I'll go into the office and phone her and tell her how we're getting along anyway.
Yes, Nick, she must be awfully anxious to hear from you.
Afraid I can't offer her much encouragement. Now, wait till I put on the lights.
Nick, there's somebody sitting at your desk.
So I see.
Who is it?
I don't know. I only see his back from here.
Nick, why is he sitting in that funny position? He looks so awkward.
It's very simple. He's dead,
Dead?
obviously. Wonder if I know him.
Nick, it's Arnold.
Yes, it's Arnold. With a bullet hole between his eyes.
And look, there's a note pinned to his coat.
It says, if you don't drop your investigation, the same thing will happen to you.
Well, Nick's hunt for Arnold is over. But with Arnold's death, Nick's hope of making him tell what has become of Mrs. Anders' baby seems to be gone forever, because dead men tell no tales. Or do they? Perhaps Nick can make this particular dead man tell him what he needs to know. Listen tomorrow. In the strange adventures of Nick Carter, Master Detective, Nick Carter is played by Lon Clark, Patsy by Helen Choate. The stories are written by Bob Arthur and David Cogan. Original music is played by Lou White. The entire production is under the direction of Jock McGregor. Tomorrow night at the same time, listen to the further adventures of Nick Carter in the case entitled
Kidnapped for Sale, or Nick Carter and the Mystery of the Missing Babies.
Don't forget that the adventures of Nick's adopted son, Chick Carter, are broadcast over most of these stations Monday through Friday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern War Time. The Return of Nick Carter, a copyrighted feature of Street and Smith Publications, Incorporated, is produced in the studios of WOR and is broadcast over most of these same stations Monday through Friday at 9:15 Eastern War Time. This is Mutual.
Carter, what is it?
It's a case for Nick Carter, master detective.
Yes, it's a case for that most famous of all manhunters, the detective whose ability at solving crime is unequaled in the history of detective fiction. Nick Carter, Master Detective. Continuing the curious adventure called
Kidnapped for Sale. For Nick Carter and the mystery of the missing babies.
To help Nick Carter smash a new and vicious racket, that of baby selling, Patsy and Scubby, Nick's assistants, are posing as a couple seeking to adopt a baby. They get into the headquarters of the baby selling ring, but there Patsy's disguise is ripped off by the man known as the Chief. Patsy and Scubby turn to flee, but...
Stand back, chumps. If you're trying to get near this door, I'll let you have it.
And we wouldn't want to lose either of you. As long as we've got you two, we've got Nick Carter himself, just where we want him.
Oh, you better not try to hold us here, Barnes. Nick knows where we are.
Of course he does. When you brought us here, you led Nick right to your hideout. We planned it that way.
Hey, Chief, maybe that's right. Maybe this is all a plan.
Don't be a fool, Joe.
Yeah, but, Chief, if Nick Carter did send him out to trap us, you can bet he ain't far away right now.
You fool. The one thing I want is to have Nick Carter walk in here and try to rescue them. That's what I've been waiting for.
What do you mean, Chief?
Take a look at that window, Joe. I'll hold my gun on these two while you do it.
Okay, Chief. What do I look for?
You see any sign of cops out there?
No, not a one. Hey, what are you getting at, Chief?
Just this. If Carter was tailing these two, he's working alone. He always works alone.
Oh, yeah, I get you. You mean if he does come up here, he'll come alone with no cops backing him up?
That's exactly what I mean. And that's what we want, because when he does come, we'll be ready for him.
You can't fool Nick. He'll figure on that.
Since when do you think a couple of cheap crooks like you can outthink Nick Carter?
Oh! Keep your mouth shut, Wilson. Well, next time you'll get something permanent.
Okay. All right, go ahead, have your fun while you can. It's not going to last long.
That's where you're wrong. Oh, Joe.
Yeah, Chief?
You're just about the same size as this fellow Wilson.
Yeah, so what?
If you were wearing that hick suit he's got on and had your hat pulled down over your face, you'd look enough like him to fool anybody for a few seconds.
I don't get you.
Take Wilson into the back room and change clothes with him.
You mean you want me to put on his duds and make him put on mine?
That's just what I mean. All right, Wilson, get going.
Sure, just as you say. Don't worry, Patsy. They can't put anything over on Nick.
After you've changed clothes, Joe, tie him up. If he tries anything funny, you know what to do.
Yeah, I got you.
And send Dutch out here. You'll find him in that back room. I've been keeping him under cover there. Cops are looking for him.
Right, Chief.
All right, I'm going. Don't...
Now, Miss Patsy Bourne, maybe you'd like to do a little talking.
I really can't think of anything I want to say to you.
What does Carter know about Mrs. Anders' baby?
I haven't the slightest idea, except that he knows where it is.
You're lying.
Well, if you don't believe me, why ask me?
You wanted me, Chief?
Oh, yes, Dutch. He's an old friend of yours.
Ah. How'd she get here?
Never mind questions. You had one chance to get rid of her and Carter, and you bungled it. Now you're going to have another chance. And the last one.
It's okay by me. What do I do?
I'll tell you in a moment. Joe, aren't you finished in there yet?
Yeah, Chief. I just got finished. I got Wilson tied up like one of these Egyptian mummies. How do I look in his duds, huh?
Just what I want. Now put Wilson's hat on.
Okay, there's that.
Yeah, pull it down over your face more.
All right, yeah.
That's better.
All right, what now?
You two stay by the window and watch the street. See if you can spot Nick Carter. Dutch knows what he looks like.
Sure. I know him like he was my brother. And I don't like him.
And now, Miss Bourne,
Yes?
since you don't feel like talking, I'm going to let you join your pal in the next room, where you'll be out of the way.
It'll be a pleasure. I enjoy his company much more than I do yours.
I'll tie you up, and then the two of you can wait for Nick Carter to come and rescue you. But if I were you, I'd spend my time thinking up some suitable last words. You're going to need them soon.
Scubby,
Yeah, Patsy?
does this floor seem as hard to you as it does to me?
Harder. I've been lying on it longer.
My hands are tied so tight my fingers feel numb. I can't seem to budge the knots in this rope, not even using all the tricks Nick taught me.
No, neither can I. I can't seem to get even a bit of slack.
I guess we'll just have to wait. What do you suppose they're up to?
Old Barnes has some trick in mind to trap Nick, obviously.
Do you think Nick was really following us?
Gosh, Patsy, I don't know. He didn't say he would.
Oh, Scubby, if only I'd kept my own hair pushed up under that wig.
Oh, wait. Yeah. I think one of these knots is starting to give, Patsy. Wait a minute. No.
No.
It's still tight.
Gosh, I wish we knew what they're up to.
I wish Nick knew. Uh-oh.
Oh, what is it?
I hear footsteps. Someone's just come into the outer office. Listen.
All right, where are they?
That's Nick's voice. Listen.
They're in this room, Carter. I'll show them to you. Open the door, Dutch.
Sure, Chief.
If you found them, you'll regret it. There they are, and no damage done.
Oh, Nick.
You all right, Patsy?
Yes, Nick, yes.
Oh, Nick, I was never gladder to see anybody in my whole life.
All right, Barnes, untie them.
Untie them? Why, what do you mean, Carter?
Gee, the Carter's sure acting goofy, ain't he?
Yeah, it sounded just like he said to untie him.
You heard me, untie them. He said if I let you capture me, you'd let them go.
Oh, Nick, you didn't make any bargain with these men, did
Under
you?
the circumstances, Miss Bowen, your friend Carter had little choice.
Oh, Nick.
Sorry, Patsy. Afraid I was a dud as a rescuer.
Well, really, Carter, you might give us credit for being just a little too clever for you, don't you think? It isn't everyone who can trick Nick Carter with a borrowed suit of clothes and some red ink on a handkerchief.
Put it any way you like. But you said you were going to release them. So go ahead and do it.
I didn't say so. Dutch said so. I'm afraid I can't let Dutch make up my mind for me.
It was just a slip of my tongue, Carter. that's
Yeah,
all.
Dutch didn't know what he was saying. He was excited.
Oh, that's how it is, huh? Well, I'm excited, too.
Nick, the other one's got a gun.
Oh, that's why you pull out into him.
Chief, he's getting my gun out of my hand.
I'll fix it.
Nick, look out! Oh, Scubby, he broke that chair right over Nick's head.
Yeah, knocked him out cold.
Yes, he asked for it. Now, tie him up, Dutch.
You bet I will, Chief. Come there, busting my wrist. Hey, give me a hand, Joe.
Yeah, sure, Dutch. You almost broke my jaw, too.
I'll let him keep you company until this evening, Miss Bowen and Mr. Wilson. At that time, I have some very interesting plans for all three of you.
Nick, can you hear me, Nick?
Hello, Patsy. Oh, what hit me? The ceiling fall in?
Barnes hit you with a chair.
Is that all? Oh. Whew. How long was I out?
About half an hour.
Nick, what happened? How did they trap you?
Oh, it was so simple, Patsy. I'm ashamed of myself. As I was walking toward the building, I saw Scubby stagger out the door with a bloody handkerchief to his face.
Well, that was the cab driver in my clothes using a handkerchief dipped in red ink.
Yes, I found that out afterward. I was down the street a few yards, and from that distance, he fooled me completely. Staggered to the cab and collapsed inside. I thought it was Scubby, hurt and trying to get away, so I ran up. When I opened the door of the cab...
He was waiting with a gun.
Exactly. And just then, Dutch shoved another gun in my back.
What did you do?
Well, I knew it was almost hopeless to make a fight for it. And Dutch said that if I'd come along quietly, they'd turn you two loose.
Oh, you didn't believe a crook like that, Nick, did you?
Oh, no, of course not, Scubby. I knew he was lying. But I pretended to believe him. I figured that if they took me to where you were being kept prisoners, I might be able to save all three of us and maybe capture some of them.
Oh, gosh, that was swell of you, Nick.
Well, I haven't given up hope yet. I think these knots they tied me with are getting looser. If I can get my hands free.
Oh, you better hurry, Nick. They may come back any minute.
Yes, I know, Scubby. There. There, they're free.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Now, as soon as I can untie my feet, we'll...
Going someplace, Carter?
Oh, Nick.
We wouldn't want to lose you. Just lie back the way you were. That's it. All the way back.
As long as you have that gun, I don't have much choice, do I?
You must have been watching through the keyhole.
Yeah. Carter, I've heard of your little tricks, and I wanted to see how good you were. But this time, you'll find out what a real knot is like. Over on your face, Carter. Hands behind your back. That's it. Dutch, give me a hand here.
Sure, Chief.
Carter, I'm going to tie you with a very special knot. A vaudeville magician once taught it to me. You can't untie it because the harder you pull, the tighter it gets. There. I put the ends of the rope through this loop like this, and pull, and there you are. Now, get out of that one.
Say, that's pretty neat. Shall I answer?
No, I'll take it. You stay here and keep both eyes on them.
Okay, Chief.
Hello? Yes, speaking. Yes? Yes, I got all three of them here now. Wrapped up like Christmas presents.
Nick.
Quiet, Patsy. I want to hear this.
Yes, as soon as they get dark. The old warehouse down the street. What's that? Dutch? Oh, yeah, I see. Yes, that's smart. No, there won't be any slip-ups this time.
They're going to kill us, aren't they?
Steady, Patsy. They may try to, but we're not dead yet.
Oh, I see. Going to Midvale yourself. Going to ship them out of the state. Yes, that'll be safer. Okay. Well, it's all set. As soon as it's dark enough, you three are going for a little ride to an old warehouse down the street. I hope you won't mind the fact that the ride will be strictly one way.
All right, you three. Go on in.
Line them up against the far wall, Dutch.
Right. Go on, you. Over against that wall.
Nick, what should we do?
Obey their orders, but move as slowly as you can.
Right.
Okay.
Come on, move.
All right, turn around now.
Shall I give it to him now?
Just a minute. I'm going out and make sure the street's clear.
Oh, I get it.
Wait till you hear me knock 3 times on the door. That'll mean everything's okay.
Trust me, Chief.
When you hear me knock 3 times, bump them off. But wait for the knocks. You understand?
Gotcha, Chief. Well, folks, any last words?
You can't get away with this, Dutch.
No? Gosh, Cotty, you get me all nervous. Maybe I better let you have it now before my hand begins to shake so bad I can't aim straight, huh?
Nick, he's really going to shoot us.
Nick, he's not fooling.
You're right. I'm not fooling.
You kill me, Dutch, you'll have every cop in the country on your neck.
Yeah. But if they can't find your body, Carter, they can't prove you've been killed, can they? And they ain't gonna find it. Because just as soon as you're dead, the chief and I are gonna light a candle and set it up in the middle of a pile of this old waste paper that's all around here, see? And when we're a long, long way from here, the candle's gonna set the paper on fire, and this old warehouse is gonna burn up like a box of matches. A 3-alarm fire.
Oh, Nick.
Why, you
But
dirty...
you folks won't mind by that time, huh? Ah, there's the chief's signal. Well, Carter, I got a feeling this gun is gonna go off just as soon as I count 3. Like this. 1, 2...
With his hands tied securely behind him and Dutch's anxious fingers squeezing the trigger of a gun aimed at his heart, Nick has only an instant longer to live, unless he can think faster than Dutch can shoot. And what stratagem can Nick possibly devise on the spur of the moment that can save the lives of himself and his 2 assistants? Listen Monday. In the Strange Adventures of Nick Carter. Nick Carter is played by Lon Clark, Patsy by Helen Choate. The stories are written by Bob Arthur and David Cogan. Original music is played by Lou White. The entire production is under the direction of Jock McGregor. Monday night at the same time, listen to the further adventures of Nick Carter in the case entitled
Kidnapped for Sale, or Nick Carter and the Mystery of the Missing Babies.
Don't forget that the adventures of Nick's adopted son, Chick Carter, broadcast over most of these stations Monday through Friday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Wartime.
This is Mutual.
In their effort to smash a criminal ring that's stealing babies and selling them for adoption, Nick Carter, his secretary Patsy, and his assistant Scubby have been captured by the gang and taken to a deserted warehouse. Dutch, one of the gang's gunmen, has orders to kill all 3 of them as soon as he receives a signal from the chief, one of the leaders of the gang. With his gun ready, Dutch waits for the signal.
There's the chief's signal that it's all clear. You know what, Carter? I got a funny feeling this gun I'm pointing at you is going to go off when I count 3. Like this. 1, 2.
Dutch, did you know the cops are looking for you already?
Huh? What do you mean they're looking for me?
There's a dragnet out for you right now. Why do you suppose the chief kept you in that back office all day?
Why,
Just so the cops wouldn't find you.
It's a lie. Cops got nothing on me.
Oh, yes, they have. They want you for Arnold's murder.
I didn't have nothing to do with that.
Yes, you did, Dutch. You left a clue on Arnold's body that will send you to the chair.
Oh, you're trying to pull a fast one, Carter. But you're not gonna. When I count 3...
Give me 1 minute, and I'll prove what I'm saying.
Prove it? How?
Dutch, you helped carry Arnold's body into my office, didn't you?
What if I did? That don't prove that
You carried Arnold's feet, and you left a fingerprint on this polished shoe.
That's a lie, Carter.
I said I'd prove it, and the proof is in my pocket. A photograph of that print.
I don't believe it.
Look for yourself. It's here in my breast pocket.
You're lying, Carter. It's just a trick to get
Look
me to...
for yourself, I said. I can't do anything to you while I'm tied up this way, can I?
Well, in this pocket, you say?
Yes.
Yeah, there's a picture in here, all right?
Take it out, and you'll see if I'm lying.
It's a picture of a fingerprint, all right?
Your print. See that cross-shaped scar? That's the print of your left thumb.
Hey, you're right. It is my thumb.
And that's what the cops have on you.
They won't get me. When I finish with you, I'm going to leave town.
That'll be too late. Your biggest danger isn't from the police, Dutch.
What do you mean? Who else is after me?
The chief.
The chief? I don't get it.
Why did the chief kill Arnold?
To shut him up before the cops could get him.
Now the cops are after you. How long do you think the chief will let you live?
He wouldn't bump me off.
No. As soon as you've killed us, he's going to put you out of the way. Didn't you hear him get his orders over the telephone back in the office?
Yeah, I did hear him mention my name.
Unless you do something quick, you're as good as dead, Dutch.
Yeah, let me think.
Scubby, Nick's got me scared.
I'll trust Nick to think of something.
I don't believe you, Carter. This is just a trick.
If it's just a trick, why did the chief lock the warehouse door when he went out just now?
He didn't.
If you think I'm wrong, try it and see.
All right, I will.
Scubby, quick. Turn your back to me and try to get hold of the loose end of the rope around my wrists.
Yeah, okay. I got it.
Good. Pull it.
Harder. Okay.
That did it. It's loose.
Pull it, all right. Why? Why'd he lock it?
So there'd be no chance of you making a getaway after shooting us.
What a dirty double-cross. I'll take care of him.
Here he comes now.
He can't do that to me.
Well, Dutch, have you finished? No, they're still alive.
Yeah, I ain't plugged him yet.
Why not, you fool? I gave you the signal 3 minutes ago.
I got to thinking.
Thinking? Who told you to think? I see you need a lesson in obeying orders.
Carter was... Yeah. So you were gonna bump me off, were you?
The chief's dead.
Yeah. He's dead, all right.
And you better be making your getaway. Somebody may have heard those shots.
Yeah. First, I got something else to tend to. I'm gonna carry out the same plan. Only it's the chief who's gonna stay here with you and not me. Hey, where's Carter?
Right behind you, Dutch.
What?
Nick, you've knocked him out cold.
Yes, and I think he'll stay out for a while. Now I'll get you two untied.
Oh, Nick, you're wonderful.
Now, Patsy, just try to think faster and farther than the other fellow, that's all.
The way you got loose and sneaked around behind him that way. Oh, Nick.
Oh, if that knot hadn't come loose the way it
But
did,
it
well,
did,
we'd...
Scubby, and that's all that matters now. There you are, Patsy. Now I'll get you loose, Scubby.
Okay.
But how did you get the knock untied, Nick? The chief said it was a special knot that no one could untie.
That was his mistake. Remember he said a magician taught it to him? Well, he was right. It was a magician's knot. Holds tight forever unless you know the trick. But I know something about magic myself in an amateur way, and I knew that knot would come loose with one pull.
Oh, I see.
But I couldn't pull it myself because he didn't leave the end long enough. There you are, Scubby.
Oh, thanks. Boy, it sure feels good to be able to stretch again.
What about the chief, Nick? Is he really...
Dead? Yes. He'll never answer any questions for us. Dutch got him through the heart.
Well, what'll we do now, Nick?
Scubby, you take Patsy back to the office and wait for me there.
Yeah.
I'm going to take Dutch to police headquarters. As soon as he comes to, I'm going to ask him a few questions.
Who hit me?
police headquarters.
Yeah, and if you know what's good for you, you're going to talk.
I don't know nothing.
Listen, Dutch. You're booked for murder. Your only chance to beat the chair is to tell us everything you know.
The chair's too good for the likes of you. But if you talk, you'll maybe get off with only a life sentence.
Oh, look, I don't know nothing, I tell you. If I did, I'd spill it, but I don't.
Come on now, tell us. Who's the real head of the gang? The one who gave the chief orders.
Oh, I don't know. Nobody knew him but the chief. All the rest of us got our orders from the chief.
Lying ain't going to get you anywhere.
I don't think he is lying, Riley. I was afraid he wouldn't know.
The real leader's too clever to have any dealings with a small fry.
Well, then we're no better off than we were before, Nick.
I haven't finished questioning him yet. Dutch, where's Mrs. Anders' baby now?
Oh, I don't know that either.
You must have heard them talking about it.
No, not enough to learn nothing.
You worked with Arnold. Didn't he mention the name of the couple he sold the baby to?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe he did. I can't remember.
You better remember if you know what's good for you.
Wait a minute, wait. Yeah, I think I got it. Yeah, Smith, that's it. Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
And the first name?
Oh, I don't know. Arnold never said.
That's no good to us. There's a million Smiths.
There may be a million Smiths, Riley, but I think I can find the particular Smiths who have Mrs. Anders' baby.
Glory be, how can you find the right Smith out of so many of them?
I haven't time to explain. See what you can get out of Dutch. I'm going to find Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
Hello?
Mrs. Anders?
Yes, this is Mrs. Anders. Who's this?
Mrs. Anders, can anyone overhear you?
No, they can't.
Good. Now, Mrs. Anders, I want you to keep quite calm until you've heard what I have to say.
Keep calm, but what is it? Is it about my baby? He's not...
Your baby is perfectly all right, Mrs. Anders.
Oh, thank heaven.
Naturally, you want him to keep on being all right, don't you?
Oh, yes, of course I do.
In that case, you must get hold of yourself and listen to me.
Yes. All right. I'll be calm. Really, I will.
Very well. Now, Mrs. Anders, I'm sure you'll be pleased to know your baby has been adopted by a very fine couple who love him as if he were their own.
Yes, but he's mine. He's my baby. They can't
You
take
mustn't interrupt. I haven't much time. This couple are able to give the baby the best of everything. More, I'm sure, than you and your husband ever could.
But that's not important. He's my baby. It doesn't matter if we're rich or not. We can take care of him. He belongs to us, not somebody else.
You should have thought of that before you agreed to let him be adopted.
But I didn't agree to let him be adopted. I didn't. They were going to take care of him for a month just while I was away. They stole him from me.
Mrs. Anders, I warn you that if you can't be calm, I'll hang up.
Yes, I'm calm now. Please don't hang up.
No matter how you came to part with him, the fact is he's safe and happy where he is. Unless you want to risk his life, you'll agree to leave him where he is and make no more effort to find him.
But I couldn't do that.
If you persist in trying to find him, Mrs. Anders, you may regret it the rest of your life.
Oh, no.
I'm speaking as a friend. If you love your baby...
Oh, I do. That's why I want him back.
I say if you love your baby, you'll go straight to Nick Carter and make him withdraw from the case.
Go to Nick Carter and tell him I don't want him to find my baby.
Exactly. And you'll make sure he does what you ask.
But then I'd never see my baby again.
Which is more important? Knowing your child is alive and growing up well and strong, or seeing him again dead?
Oh, no.
You have to make the choice. Now, quickly. What do you say?
No, I can't.
Hurry, Mrs. Anders. It's life or death for your baby.
Oh, all right. I'll tell Mr. Carter.
That's a very wise decision. But you mustn't tell him why you're asking him to give up the case. You understand?
No,
Tell him that you've been thinking it over, and that you've decided the baby would be too much of a burden for you and your husband. That you want the people who have him to keep him.
All right. I'll tell him.
And see to it that he believes you. Goodbye, Miss Anders.
Nick, what did you learn from Dutch?
You learned something, I can tell that.
I didn't learn much, but I think it may be enough. Patsy, hand me the suburban telephone book, will you?
Telephone
No,
book?
of course, Nick. Here it is.
Thank you. Now, let's see. O-R-S. Sampson, Simpkins, Smith. Huh. 2 columns with Smith.
Oh, what Smiths are you looking for?
The ones who have Mrs. Anders' baby. Who else?
Huh? Oh, sure, yeah. Who else?
Let's see. Aha, here we are. It's either the Howard Smiths or the Richard Smiths.
But how do you know, Nick?
Dutch said a couple named Smith took the baby.
But out of all the Smiths in the world, how could you
Just
possibly?
by putting the clues together, Patsy.
But
Stop and think. You know them as well as I do.
maybe I do, but I'm afraid you'll have to tell me just the same.
All right, Patsy, I will. Later.
Oh, Nick.
Right now, Scubby and I are going after the baby, and every minute counts.
Oh, that's swell, Nick. Hey, will it take long?
An hour, perhaps. We have to drive about 15 miles. Patsy, you take care of the office while we're gone.
Why can't I come too?
2 of us are enough. You can do more good here.
Oh, all right, but I'll be on pins and needles until you get back.
Right. Now, Scubby,
I'll answer it. Yes? Oh, it's Mrs. Anders. Come in, dear.
Yes, go ahead. I must speak to Mr. Carter at once.
Yes, of course. He's right here.
Good evening, Mrs. Anders.
Mr. Carter,
I've only got a moment now, Mrs. Anders, but I think I can promise you that I'll have good news for you very soon.
Good news?
Mm-hmm.
You mean you know where my baby is?
Yes, Mrs. Anders. You may have it back before the night's over.
No, I don't want it back.
You don't want your baby back.
Say, what is this?
I've been thinking it over. Baby, it's too much of a burden for me. I want the people who have it to keep it.
You want them to keep it? Mrs. Anders.
Yes, I never want to see it again. Mr. Carter, you've got to stop trying to find it.
Mrs. Anders, you can't be serious.
But I am. I mean every word of it. You've got to drop the case. Promise me you will.
But Mrs. Anders.
No, Patsy, no. There's no use arguing with her. She may.
No, I do. Promise me you won't go any further, Mr. Carter. Please promise me.
All right, Mrs. Anders. I promise.
So Nick has promised to drop the case, to stop trying to get back the baby for whose sake he and Patsy and Scubby have just risked their lives. And just as it seemed he was about to find it, he can't be going to let the baby-stealing gang get away with it. He must have something else in mind. But what? Listen tomorrow. In The Strange Adventures of Nick Carter, Master Detective, Nick Carter is played by Lon Clark, Patsy by Helen Choate. The stories are written by Bob Arthur and David Cogan. Original music is played by Lew White. The entire production is under the direction of Jock McGregor. Tomorrow night at the same time, listen to the further adventures of Nick Carter in the case entitled
Kidnapped for Sale, for Nick Carter and the mystery of the missing babies.
Don't forget that the adventures of Nick's adopted son, Chick Carter, are broadcast over most of these stations Monday through Friday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Wartime. Nick's own show, The Return of Nick Carter, is a copyrighted feature of Street and Smith Publications, Incorporated. It is a mutual presentation produced in the New York studios and is broadcast over most of these stations Monday through Friday evenings at 9:15 Eastern Wartime. This is Mutual.
What's the matter? What is it?
It's in the case for Nick Carter, Master Detective. Yes, it's a case for that most famous of all manhunters, the detective whose ability at solving crime is unequaled in the history of detective fiction. Nick Carter, Master Detective. Continuing the curious adventure called
Kidnapped for Sale, for Nick Carter and the mystery of the missing babies.
Searching for the babies stolen from Mrs. Mary Anders by a gang that specializes in getting hold of babies any way they can and then selling them to couples eager to adopt them, Nick, Patsy, and Scubby were captured by the gang and turned over to Dutch for execution. Dutch is in an argument with the chief, turned on him and killed him. During the battle, Nick got free and captured Dutch, who confessed that the baby was being held by a Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Later, As Nick was leaving his office, Mrs. Anders came to him and begged him to drop the case. Nick reluctantly agreed and sent Mrs. Anders home. Now, Nick and Scubby are in Nick's car. Scubby is driving.
But, Nick, where are we going? You haven't told me where to drive to yet.
We're going to Midvale, Scubby. Know how to get there?
Oh, sure, that's about 15 miles north of here. Oh, we are going after Mrs. Anders' baby, aren't we?
Yes, Scubby. And every second counts.
But, Nick, what about your promise to Mrs. Anders that you'd stop trying to find her baby?
I had to make that promise for her sake, Scubby. She was trying hard to control her feelings, but she was obviously on the verge of hysterics. I'm sure she was terrified by something.
Yeah, she sure was upset, all right.
She couldn't have changed her mind about wanting to give her baby up. She loved her too much. No, Scubby, the gang undoubtedly threatened to harm her child unless she made me give up the search for it.
So that's it?
Yes. And if they're going to harm it, they'll do it whether I give up the case or not. That's why I'm going ahead in spite of my promise to Mrs. Anders. There's too much at stake to quit now.
Right, Nick. I'll have you in Midvale in 15 minutes. Only, why Midvale?
Because that's where all the clues point to.
What clues, Nick? I didn't know we had any yet.
You're just not putting them together, Scubby. Start with the clue Patsy and I found in Arnold's apartment.
Oh, you mean the burnt piece of paper with the words Main Street and $3,000 on it?
That's one of the clues. It told us that the baby had probably been sold to some couple living on Main Street.
Yeah, but it didn't say what Main Street, Nick. And there are thousands of them.
I know. But Dutch Jennings told us the couple's last name was Smith.
Yeah, but there must be an awful lot of Smiths living on all the different main streets in this country.
Right. However, luckily enough, though, we have another clue you haven't mentioned.
Huh? Oh, have we? I didn't know about it.
Oh, yes, you do, Scubby. That telephone call the chief got while we were tied up in his office. Remember it?
Oh, sure, I remember it. Well, what about it?
During the conversation, the chief mentioned Midvale. Then said, "Oh, you're going to pick it up yourself and ship it out of the state. That'll be safer."
I get it. They must have been talking about the baby. So that gives us Main Street, Midvale, Smith, 3 different little clues put together to make one big one.
Exactly.
Right?
And the telephone directory lists only 2 Smiths on Main Street in Midvale. A Howard Smith at 517 Main Street and a Richard Smith at 921 Main.
Then one of them must be the Smith we want.
Right, Scubby. And in 10 minutes, I expect to find out which one it is.
Well, here's the 500 block on Main Street, Nick. 517 must be one of those houses right there.
Don't stop directly in front of it, Scubby. Pull up a couple of houses beyond.
Right, Nick. Yeah, that's 517. That little frame house with the porch light on. Look, I'll park up by the street light and then you can get
never
up.
mind stopping. Never mind. This isn't the place.
It isn't?
No.
Well, for Pete's sake, how do you know it isn't?
Just by looking at it. That porch light told me enough to be positive Mrs. Anders' baby isn't there.
Oh, detecting is nice work if you can get it. But I don't get it, Nick.
Well, think, Scubby. It's a small house, badly in need of paint.
Yeah?
And on the porch, there were 3 bicycles and a tricycle.
Yeah?
Well, what does that mean to you?
Huh? 3 bicycles. Well, I suppose that means 3 kids in the house.
Mm-hmm.
And the tricycle probably means another one not big enough for a bicycle yet, huh?
Right, Scubby. A family with 4 children, at least, in a small house that needs repairs. So?
Oh, sure. Those Smiths don't have much dough. With 4 kids to take care of, they aren't going to adopt another one. They got their hands full now.
Exactly. So let's try the Richard Smiths at 921 Main.
Okay. Well, that must be 921 up there in the middle of the next block. Yeah, and it's a new house, too.
Mm-hmm. New and expensive. The lights are on, which means they're at home.
Uh-huh. Oh, do you want me to drive by and stop?
No, stop right in front of the house.
Okay.
Good. Come on.
Yeah. Think we'll have any trouble, Nick?
I doubt it. These people must know they got the baby the wrong way. They should be only too glad to give it up to avoid trouble.
Well, I'll ring. Hey, you're positive that these are the people who've got Mrs. Anders' baby, Nick?
I'd stake my reputation on it, Scubby. You see those muddy wheel marks on that walk up the side of the house?
Oh, yeah. A baby buggy made those, all right.
Mm-hmm. Which means that they have...
Yes? What is it?
Mr. Smith?
Yes, I'm Mr. Smith.
My name's Nick Carter.
Oh.
This is my assistant, Mr. Wilson.
How do you do?
I'd like to talk to you. May we come in?
Is there any reason you can't talk here?
Not if you prefer.
I do. What is it?
Mr. Smith, we've come for that baby you and your wife adopted about 2 weeks ago.
Baby? What are you talking about?
You know very well what I'm talking about. There's no use trying to bluff us.
I don't know what you're talking about. You're either crazy or making a bad mistake. There's no baby in this house, Mr. Carter.
There never has been a baby in this house. And as far as I'm concerned, there never will be a baby here. Good night, sir.
Gosh, Nick, what are we going to do now? That wasn't the right place after all.
Scubby, I couldn't have been mistaken.
Well, that Smith guy certainly was positive about it.
Yes, Scubby, a little too positive. As if he had his answer ready even before we arrived.
Oh, you mean you think that he...
Oh, Scubby, stop in front of this drugstore we're coming to.
The drugstore? Okay, Nick. Oh, what are you going to do in here?
I noticed the only drugstore in the neighborhood. I'd like to ask the druggist some questions. Wait for me, will you?
Yeah, sure.
Evening. Something I can do for you?
I wonder if you could tell me how to reach 917 Main Street, Mr. Richard Smith's house.
The Smiths? Straight down the street, about 2 blocks. Big new house on your right.
Thanks very much. Oh, I wonder if you could tell me how old the baby they've adopted is. I'd like to buy a present for it.
How old?
Yes.
Well, I'm afraid I can't say. It must be pretty small, though.
That's so?
Yes, they bought special baby food about 10 days ago. The other day, they got some Castile soap and some baby powder.
I see.
Can't be a very old baby.
Well, thanks. Then I guess I'll take a chance and buy it a teddy bear. I think that one on the counter there will do very nicely.
This one?
Yes.
$2.98, mister.
Here's a 5. Keep the change.
Why, thanks. Thanks.
Well, did you find out anything, Nick?
Yes. Back to the Smiths, Scubby.
Yeah?
This time they're going to talk if we have to make them do it.
Now, listen here. You can't force your way into my house like this. Get out. And get out at once.
Not until you've done a little talking. Close the door, Scubby.
Right, Nick.
This is an outrage. Richard, I'm going to call the police.
Go right ahead, Mrs. Smith. We'll wait here till they come.
I'll handle this, my dear. Mr. Carter, for the last time, I order you to leave this house.
And for the last time, I refuse. Now, suppose we step into the living room. We can talk more comfortably here.
We have nothing to talk about. We've already told you there's no baby in this house.
There certainly is not.
I believe there's no baby here now, Mrs. Smith, but I'm positive that until a few hours ago, you had a baby here. Now, where is it gone?
But we didn't. I tell you, we didn't.
Then how do you explain this?
Oh.
It's a baby's rattle.
Yes, I spotted it under the sofa a second ago. You overlooked it, Mr. Smith, when you and your wife tried to get rid of all the signs that there had been a baby here.
Oh, tell them, Richard. Go on, tell them.
Dorothy?
No, Richard, I can't lie any longer. Yes, we did adopt a baby, but now they've taken it away again.
That's better. Who took it?
Well, a man called for it only an hour ago. He told us we'd get into serious legal trouble if we didn't give it up.
That's right, Mr. Carter. The man who came for it said there'd been a mix-up, and the baby's mother was threatening legal action. He told us that if we denied ever having had the baby, we could stay in the clear.
It was such a sweet baby. I couldn't understand the mother ever being willing to give it up in the first place. But I suppose the $3,000 meant more to us than the baby did.
You paid $3,000 for that baby?
Yes. We tried hard to adopt one the usual way, but we were told we'd have to wait and wait. So when this Mr. Arnold got in touch with us, we talked it over, and then...
And you got mixed up in one of the newest and dirtiest rackets in existence.
Well, what do you mean?
Arnold was a member of a gang specializing in getting hold of babies and selling them to people like you, people anxious to adopt a child. The baby you adopted was stolen from its mother.
Oh, no.
We never dreamed that
No, of course not. Never mind that now. The baby's life's in danger. We've got to find fast. Now tell me all you can about the man who came for the baby.
Well, he was no one we'd ever seen before. But he knew all about the baby and said Arnold had sent him.
Yes?
He gave us our money back and said he was going to take the baby back to its mother. And if we'd keep our mouths shut, there wouldn't be any trouble.
What did he look like?
He was about 30 and thin. He had dark hair and eyes, and he talked with a slight foreign accent.
How was he dressed?
He had a dark coat and vest that didn't fit quite right. He was wearing dark slacks of a different material. Whipcord, I think.
Coat that didn't fit and whipcord slacks, huh? That isn't the way I should have expected the head of this gang to dress. Is that all you can tell us?
I'm afraid it is. We wrapped the baby up well, and this man took it away in a car.
What kind of car?
It was a dark sedan. I couldn't see it very well from the window.
Dark sedan, huh? Was anyone else in it?
I think there was. I got the impression there was someone sitting in the back seat.
But the man who got the baby was the one who drove the car away.
Yes, that's right.
I see. Anything else?
I'm afraid not.
Oh, gosh, Nick, that doesn't give us much of a clue as to where they've taken the baby.
No, Scubby, it doesn't. And yet I have a hunch that somewhere there must
Is
be...
that... I'll answer, Richard.
Carter? Oh, yes, he's here. Just a moment. It's for you, Mr. Carter.
For you, Nick? Well, who knows you're here?
Patsy, probably. She knew we were coming. Hello?
Nick, is that you?
Yes, Patsy, what's up?
Nick, Mr. Randolph Phelps just phoned the office.
Phelps? What about?
He didn't say. Just said it was very important, and he wanted you to get in touch with him the minute you came in.
I see. Did he leave his number?
Yes. Rivertown 312.
Rivertown. Well, that's about 20 miles from here. I'll call him right away. Thanks, Patsy. See you later.
Well, what is it, Nick? Anything important?
Yes, Scubby. It may be the break we need. Mr. Smith, you mind if I make a call on your phone?
Well, of course not. Go right ahead.
Thanks. Operator, I'd like Rivertown 312, please.
Is that the Phelps who's connected with the infant's hospital, Nick? The one who wants to help find the baby?
Yes, Scubby. Maybe he's got...
Hello?
Oh, hello. Hello, Mr. Phelps?
Yes, speaking.
This is Nick Carter, Mr. Phelps.
Oh, yes, Mr. Carter. I'm certainly glad to hear from you. I want your advice.
Advice?
About half an hour ago, I had a phone call from someone who wouldn't give me his name. He spoke with a slight accent and...
Accent?
Yes. He said he wanted to speak to me privately. That he had a proposition for me.
What kind of proposition?
He wouldn't come straight out with it, but he intimated that if I'd use my connection with the infant's hospital to supply him certain information, he would pay me $50,000 a year.
I see.
I thought he was probably a member of the baby selling ring, maybe the head of it. So I pretended to be interested.
Go on.
I told him I'd talk to him, and he insisted on seeing me at once. He said he'd be here inside of an hour. I thought perhaps you'd like to be here when I talk to him.
Good. I'll come at once. If he shows up before I get there, stall him along. I'll be there inside of 30 minutes.
So just when it seemed that Nick and Scubby had at last uncovered the whereabouts of the Anders baby, an unknown man with an accent got away with the baby almost under their very noses. Once again, it looks as if the baby-selling gang has beaten Nick to it. But now that man with an accent has made an appointment to talk to Randolph Phelps, the head of the infant's hospital, and Phelps has invited Nick to be present at the interview. Will this prove to be the break that Nick has been looking for? Is he about to meet the head of the gang? Listen tomorrow. The Strange Adventures of Nick Carter, Master Detective, features Lon Clark as Nick Carter. Patsy is played by Helen Choate. The stories are written by Bob Arthur and David Cogan, and original music is played by Lou White. The entire production is under the direction of Jock McGregor. Tomorrow night at the same time, listen to the further adventures of Nick Carter in the case entitled
Kidnapped for Sale, or Nick Carter and the Mystery of the Missing Babies.
The adventures of Nick's adopted son, Chick Carter, boy detective, are broadcast over most of these stations Monday through Fridays at 5:30 p.m. Eastern War Time. Nick's own show, The Return of Nick Carter, a copyrighted feature of Street and Smith Publications, Incorporated, is presented by the Mutual Broadcasting System and is broadcast from our New York studios over most of these stations every evening, Monday through Friday at 9:15 Eastern War Time. This is Mutual.
What's the matter? What is it?
It's a case for Nick Carter, Master Detective.
Yes, it's a case for the most famous of all manhunters, the detective whose ability at solving crime is unequaled in the history of detective fiction. Nick Carter, Master Detective. Continuing the curious adventure called
Kidnapped for Sale, or Nick Carter and the Mystery of the Missing Babies.
Putting together several clues he had uncovered, Nick Carter learned that Mrs. Anders' baby, stolen by the baby ring that has been acquiring babies in any way it can and selling them to couples eager to adopt them, had been sold to a Mr. and Mrs. Smith living on Main Street in Midvale. Hurrying to Midvale with Scubby, Nick got there just too late. A man with a foreign accent had gotten the baby back from the Smiths and disappeared with it again. Nick, uncertain of his next move, gets a phone call from Randolph Phelps, the head of the board of the infant's hospital, who says he is eager to help stamp out the gang. Phelps says that the man with the accent has made an appointment to call on him in about an hour. So Nick and Scubby start immediately for the Phelps estate.
Gosh, Nick, that phone call from Phelps was a break, wasn't it?
Yes, Scubby. It looks as if things are coming our way at last.
Well, it's sure about time. So far, the gang has been one jump ahead of us all the way.
But we're catching up with them, though. I'm only worried about one thing, Scubby.
Oh, you mean the baby?
Yes, Scubby. I've got to get that baby back safe and sound. After promising Mrs. Anders to stop hunting for it, I can't let anything happen to it.
Yeah, you're right, Nick.
I was staking everything on finding the baby with Mr. and Mrs. Smith, but since the gang's one jump ahead of us, we've got to catch up with them, and quickly.
Oh, Nick.
Yes, what is it?
If that man who took the baby is on his way now to talk to Phelps, maybe he'll have the baby with him. He only got it from the Smiths an hour ago.
No, Scubby, I'm afraid not. He's probably left it in some safe hiding place. But if my hunch is right, it won't be too far away.
Gosh, I hope you're right. Hey, why do you suppose he wants to talk to Phelps?
Well, as a member of the board of directors of the Infants Hospital, Phelps is in a position to obtain a lot of information that would be helpful to the gang.
Oh, sure, Nick. If they could get Phelps to help them, they'd be sitting pretty.
Yes, Phelps would be a big asset to that gang, Scubby. Oh, that crossroad just ahead will save us a mile in getting to Riverton. You better turn there.
Okay, Nick. I sure hope we can reach Phelps' place before the man with the accent does. Nick, that must be the Phelps place up there ahead of us on the hill.
Oh, yes. He said it was the first estate on River Road after we turned off the highway, so that's the place, all right.
And that must be the drive leading up to the house. Oh, shall I turn in?
Yes, but take it slowly, Scubby. Take it slowly.
Yeah.
And turn off the headlights.
Right. Gosh, it's dark with the lights off.
Now, there's light enough if you take it easy. Follow the drive all the way around behind the house to the garage. If our man hasn't come yet, we don't want him to see our car when he does get here. Ah, that must be the Phelps car outside the garage. Pull up beside it.
Right, Nick. Well, there's no other car here yet. So I guess we did get here before the guy with the accent.
I hope so. I want to talk to Phelps first, if possible. Let's see now. Phelps said to come to the back door.
Yeah.
Oh, let's see where. Oh, yes, there it is. Come on.
Hey, we really are out in the country. Listen to those crickets.
There they are. And the doorbell. Scubby, let me have your gun.
My gun?
Yes. You brought one along, didn't you?
Oh, sure. Wait a minute. Here it is.
Thanks.
But, Nick, don't you have
Quiet. Here comes somebody.
Yes? Who is it?
Nick Carter. Mr. Phelps is expecting me. This is my assistant.
Oh, of course. Come in, please. Mr. Phelps is in the study. Right this way, please.
Thank you.
Mr. Carter and his assistant are here, Mr. Phelps.
Good. Come in, Mr. Carter. I'm certainly glad to see you.
And I'm glad we could get here in time. This is my assistant, Scubby Wilson.
How do you do, Mr. Wilson?
How do you do?
Please sit down, both of you, and... Oh, Harry,
Yes, Mr. Phelps?
wait in the front hall until the caller we're expecting gets here. Warn me on the communicator before you show him in, though.
Certainly, Mr. Phelps.
Now, Mr. Carter, I want your advice. Should we try to capture this man the minute he gets here, or should we hear what he has to say first?
I'd like to hear what he has to say, and the more he talks about himself and his gang, the better I'll like it.
That's my idea exactly.
But, Nick, suppose he brings some of his gunmen with him.
We have to take that chance, Scubby. But I have a hunch he's traveling practically alone tonight. When he got Mrs. Anders' baby from the Smiths, we know he didn't have more than one man with him.
You say he got Mrs. Anders' baby?
Yes,
You
Mr.
mean-
Phelps. We almost got it back, but he beat us to it again.
I'm very sorry to hear that. You have some clue as to where it's gone, I hope?
No, not a sign of
Well,
one.
that is nothing very tangible. But we have enough to keep us going.
I see. However, I understand you have had some success in rounding up some of the less important members of the ring. I suppose with what you've learned from them, you have a pretty good line on the rest of the gang.
Oh, we don't really
yes,
have...
Yes, indeed, Mr. Phelps. Riley's working on that now, although he hasn't completely analyzed all the information yet.
Oh, I see. Well, I hope we can stamp out the entire gang soon. I agreed to talk to this fellow with the accent in the hope that we could learn something from him.
I'm very glad you did, and I'm glad you got in touch with me. I hope to find out a great deal tonight.
But, Nick, how are we going to get him to talk? If he sees us, he's
We'll have
probably...
to hide someplace where we can overhear you, Mr. Phelps. Let's see. What about that alcove there where the windows are?
Oh, yes, of course. That should be just the thing.
Oh, I see. And when the time comes, we can jump out and take him by surprise.
Mm-hmm. And I think it'll work. Get as much out of him as you can, Mr. Phelps.
Trust me for that. Now, there's just one other thing.
Yes? What?
The butler and the maids are out tonight. Besides yourselves, there's just me and my secretary here now. You think we ought to send for any help?
You mean the cops?
I was thinking of the state police, just to be on the safe side.
All right. Can't do any harm.
It'll just take a second. Hello, operator. 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 Operator, give me the state police barracks on Meridian Road. Yes, that's right. We can be sure now that he won't get away.
Yes.
Hello? State police? This is Mr. Randolph Phelps speaking. Can you send 2 of your men over at once? Yes, it's urgent. You know where I live, don't you? On River Road? Good. I'll expect them inside of 20 minutes. Thank you. There. Now I think we're prepared. Our visitors should be here at any minute. You're armed, of course.
Yes, I have a gun. You engage him in conversation. When I think the right time has come, I'll step out and cover him. He won't get away.
Excellent, Mr. Carter. Now,
He's here.
Yes? Hello?
Your caller is here, Mr. Phelps.
Thank you. Show him in.
Yes, sir.
You'd better get set.
Yes, come on, Scubby. Let's get behind those drapes.
Sure, Nick.
The gentleman to see you, Mr. Phelps.
Thank you, Harry. See that we aren't disturbed.
Yes, sir.
Well, Mr. Phelps, this is a pleasure. It's quite a few years since we met last.
We never have met, to my knowledge. And I like to know a man's name when I'm speaking to him.
Oh, too bad, Mr. Phelps. I like to keep my name a secret. But let's sit down, shall we? I think I have something to say that you'll be most interested in.
That's what you said on the phone. I cannot imagine what you can have to say that will interest me.
Nick,
But we might as
that's
well
the
sit
guy
down.
who's got the baby, all right.
Yes, and he's still wearing the whipcord slacks Mrs. Smith mentioned.
Nick, I've got a funny idea. I've seen him before, but I don't know where. Maybe I saw a picture of him in the paper sometime.
Yes, Scubby, you probably did. Oh, I place him now. 15 years ago, he drove a truck for a rum-running gang. He used the name of Danny the Frenchman.
But, Nick, what are we going
Quiet, Scubby. I want to hear this.
Down to business and say what you have to say. My time is limited.
All right, Mr. Phelps. Here it is. You're on the board of the Infants Hospital. You have connections with other nursing homes.
What of it?
Well, just this. We want you to give us the names of people coming to the hospital to adopt babies. Also, the names of all mothers in the hospital records who are in financial difficulty.
That's perfectly preposterous.
Oh, is it? Not for $50,000 a year, it is.
$50,000?
Whatever made you think I'd
Quiet,
agree to
Scubby.
such a proposition?
Because, Mr. Phelps, that's quite a bit of money. And think how easy it is to earn it. And in a way, you will be a public benefactor. Think of all these well-fixed people who desire to adopt fine little babies, who will be just making things easier for them, and you will be well paid for it. Nobody will be hurt. Everybody will benefit.
Hear that, Nick?
Maybe, and maybe not. But I certainly wouldn't dream of associating with you unless I knew more about you. How does your organization work?
Oh, very simply, Mr. Phelps. We have men constantly on the lookout for mothers who wish to part with their babies, and also for couples who want babies to adopt. We, shall I say, we act as middlemen for a fee, of course, a large fee.
That doesn't tell me much, I'm afraid.
You will learn more later when you have joined us, sir. You see, with your contacts, Mr. Phelps, we will be able to dispense with many of these other men, and the profits will be that much greater.
But what about the risk? Suppose Nick Carter and the police catch up with you. Then what?
Nick Carter. Ah, yes. He's been a little bothersome of late.
And how?
I have lost 3 of my best men because of him. One of them, my chief lieutenant.
To me, it seems very important.
Very soon now, I shall take care of Nick Carter. And the police are much too stupid to be of danger.
Suppose I turn down your offer.
Well, that would be very unwise, Mr. Phelps. Very unwise.
Yes, I see what you mean. But you've got to give me a little time to think.
Oh, as long as you wish, Mr. Phelps. Up to 2 minutes.
Phelps is sure doing a good job of acting, Nick.
Yes, Scubby, a very good job of acting.
I'll say so. Hey, Nick, I think I heard a car stop outside the house then.
Yes, so did I.
Must be the state troopers that Phelps sent for.
Probably. Well, Scubby, I think the time has come for action.
Up with your hands, Danny. I've got you covered.
What the...
Don't reach for that gun or I'll let you have it.
Good work, Carter.
Nick Carter?
Yes, Danny. Nick Carter. Now stand up. That's right. And keep your hands up.
Say, what is this?
Get his gun, Scubby.
I'll get it.
Never mind, Mr. Phelps. Scubby will take it.
Yeah. Okay, I got it, Nick. Now what?
Give me the gun.
Yeah, here.
Now, we'll tie him up first, and then he's going to do a little more talking.
You will regret this, Phelps.
Mr. Phelps, you put in a call for some state troopers?
Yes, I did. Come in.
Come in, Lefty.
Hey, those are two of the toughest-looking state troopers I ever saw. Hey, one of them's got a Tommy gun.
Ask him.
All right, Carter. You and your chum put up your hands or I'll cut you both in half with this gun I got here.
But, hey, you don't want us. You want him.
That's what you think. Put up your hands quick. You too, Phelps.
But I don't understand.
Never mind what you understand. Put up your hands. That's right. Now, if one of you moves, you're a dead duck.
This is ridiculous. Mr. Carter,
Hey,
can't
you're making a mistake.
I don't think so, Scubby. I've been afraid of something like this happening. He seems to mean what he says.
You bet we do. Get the guns, Danny.
Of course. I'll take my gun back again, if you please, Mr. Carter. And yours. Ah, thank you.
That is all.
And yours, Wilson?
I don't have one.
No? Well, let me see, huh? No, you're right. Mr. Phelps doesn't carry one, I'm sure.
You'll suffer for this.
Oh, yes, someone will suffer, but not me. Well, Mr. Carter, you are not talking much for a man who is about to die.
That doesn't seem to be much to say.
I'm glad you appreciate that. Words are no good to you now, you know. You escaped from my men, but I'm not as stupid as they were. This time there's going to be no slip-up. You're going to die, Nick Carter. But it's going to be done so cleverly that nobody is even going to guess you were murdered.
So the plan that Nick and Scubby and Phelps made backfired on them. They laid a trap for Danny, the man with the accent, but he outsmarted them, and it was they themselves who were caught in it. Danny has planned cleverly so far, but can he carry his plan through to its intended finish and eliminate Nick Carter forever? Listen tomorrow. The Strange Adventures of Nick Carter, Master Detective, features Lon Clark as Nick Carter. Patsy is played by Helen Choate. The stories are written by Bob Arthur and David Cogan, and original music is played by Lou White. The entire production is under the direction of Jock McGregor. Tomorrow night at the same time, listen to the further adventures of Nick Carter in the case entitled
Kidnapped for Sale, or Nick Carter and the Mystery of the Missing Babies.
The adventures of Nick's adopted son, Chick Carter, boy detective, are broadcast over most of these stations Monday through Fridays at 5:30 p.m. Eastern War Time. Nick's own show, The Return of Nick Carter, a copyrighted feature of Street & Smith Publications, Incorporated, is presented by the Mutual Broadcasting Company and is broadcast from our New York studios over most of these stations every evening, Monday through Friday, at 9:15 Eastern War Time. This is Mutual.
It's a case for Nick Carter, Master Detective.
Yes, it's a case for that most famous of all manhunters, the detective whose ability at solving crime is unequaled in the history of detective fiction. Nick Carter, Master Detective. Continuing the curious adventure called
Kidnapped for Sale, or Nick Carter and the Mystery of the Missing Babies.
After considerable difficulty, Nick Carter finally discovered that Mrs. Mary Anders' stolen baby had been sold to a couple named Smith. But he arrived at the Smiths' home to find that a man with an accent had just been there and had taken the baby away. Uncertain of his next move, Nick received a phone call from Randolph Phelps, who said that the man with an accent had made an appointment to see him and invited Nick to be present at the interview. After hearing the man invite Phelps to become a member of the baby-selling ring, Nick and Scubby take him prisoner. They're about to tie him up when two men, dressed as state troopers, burst into the room, armed with a submachine gun. But they ignore the man with the accent and instead train the gun on Nick and Scubby.
All right, get up your hands, all of you, or I'll cut you in two with this gun.
But you don't want us. You want him, that man there.
We know who we want. Get your hands up. You too, Phelps. That's better.
But you're making a mistake.
I'll say you are.
I don't think so, Scubby. I've been afraid of something like this all along. These men mean what they say.
You bet we do. Danny, collect the guns.
It will be a pleasure. I'll take my gun back again, Mr. Carter. And your own gun. Thank you. Have you any other weapons? No, you're clean. You have no gun, Wilson?
No.
No. No, you're clean also. And you don't carry one, do you, Mr. Phelps?
I don't know what this means, but if you harm us, you'll have every cop in the state after you by morning.
Ha, the police. With Nick Carter dead, the police do not worry me.
I'm not dead yet, Danny.
No? That's a very nice point. Hardly worth considering. Trigger, tie these three up.
Yeah, sure thing, Danny. Who'll I tie up first?
Tie Phelps first, Trigger.
Okay, Danny. All right, boss, turn around and put your hands behind you.
Boss, so I was right. You are the head of the gang.
That's absurd.
Oh, no, it isn't. This gunman of yours gave you away when he called you boss. I suspected you all along, Phelps, but I couldn't prove it until now.
Trigger, you're a fool.
Oh, gee, boss, I forgot.
Well, Phelps, what have you got to say?
Very well, Carter, you're right. But it's a little late, don't you think? Tie them up, Trigger.
Boss.
Yes, what's the matter?
I just remembered I left the rope in the car.
You fool, go get it.
Yeah, boss, right away. I'll only be a minute.
Well, Phelps, since it seems we have to wait, I hope we can at least sit down. It's been rather an unexpected evening.
Of course, Carter. Sit down by all means. I don't wonder your knees are feeling a little weak about now.
Thanks.
You too, Wilson. Sit down. No, over there, farther away from Carter.
Okay, you're the boss.
I'm glad you realize that.
I suppose that you're going to kill us in such a way that it'll look like an accident, huh?
Yes, Carter, and such an unfortunate accident, too. You recall as you came down the river road that spot just at the turn where there's a sheer 50-foot drop into the river?
Oh, yes, I remember.
That is going to be the scene of your death. Your car, Carter, is going to go off the highway right there and roll down the bank into the river. You and Wilson will be in it, of course. You'll drown, and that will be that.
You're overlooking something, Phelps. Riley knows we came here.
Yeah, and so does Patsy. They'll never believe it was an accident.
I think they will. Every sign will point to the fact that on your way here, you ran off the road into the river. As for your Miss Bowen, I think I'll take care of that right now. Hello, operator.
Hey, what's he up to now, Nick?
I think I can guess, Scubby. Let's see if I'm right.
Operator, give me downtown 1137.
Nick, that's your office number.
I know, Scubby.
Shut up, you two.
Hello? Miss Bowen? Miss Bowen, this is Randolph Phelps. I'm rather worried about Mr. Carter. Yes. You see, an hour ago, he phoned me that he was on his way here, and he hasn't shown up yet. You haven't heard from him? Well, if you do, let me know. And you might get in touch with Lieutenant Riley. Perhaps he'll know something. Yes, I'll have Mr. Carter call if he gets here. Good night. Now, Carter, in the morning when your secretary hears you have had an accident, it will seem quite natural, both to her and to Riley.
You're forgetting one important thing, Phelps.
And what is that?
Riley is already suspicious of you.
Indeed. Why should he be?
Remember that first time you came down to headquarters to ask about Mrs. Anders' baby? That was a bad slip, Phelps. Nobody knew anything about the baby except myself and the police, and we hadn't talked. You could only have known about it if you yourself were connected with the gang.
If you suspected me then, why didn't you do something about it?
I couldn't just then. I was principally interested in getting the baby back. And I knew if you were part of the gang, I'd round you up when I got the rest of them.
And you've rounded me up by getting yourself into a death trap from which there's no escape. Brilliant, Carter.
Say, I don't get it, Phelps. If you were planning all along to grab us, why all the hocus pocus? Why didn't you just nab us the minute we came in the house?
Frankly, Wilson, because I didn't want to try anything with Nick Carter until I could have enough of my own men here to make sure we would win. I couldn't risk any slip-up.
So that call to the state police was a fake, huh?
Of course. I simply held the hook down and talked into a dead phone. Lefty and Trigger were already on the way from town. But I had to play you along until they arrived.
Okay, boss, I got the rope.
What took you so long?
Well, Harry and me, we was figuring out the best place to run the car into the river.
You were figuring out. I do the thinking around here. Now get busy and tie Carter up.
Sure, boss. All right, stand up, Carter. I got a special treat for you. A silk rope. It's an old Chinese trick. Once it's tied, nobody can untie it. It's gotta be cut loose.
And suppose I don't stand up?
Then you'll get a load of lead and you won't be able to stand up.
I see. Phelps, you have a nice plan. But suppose I don't cooperate. Suppose I make you shoot me now instead of letting you drown me later. And your whole accident story will be out the window.
I could change it if I had to. But I'm warning you, Carter. You're going to die anyway, so you'd better take it my way. Give us any trouble and we'll kill the Anders baby immediately.
So you have the Anders baby here?
Yes, right upstairs in this house. And its life depends on your good behavior. If you give us no trouble, we'll see that the baby gets back to Mrs. Anders safe and sound.
That's the one thing I wanted to know. All right, Trigger, I'll stand up.
Stand up!
Stand still with you in front of me like this, Trigger. I don't think your pals will shoot. If they do, they'll get you first.
Get him, Lefty. He's got a gun.
That Trigger so I can get a shot at him.
I can't, Lefty. He's holding me too tight.
Then I'll have to shoot him.
That takes care of you, Lefty. You better drop your gun, Danny.
Not till I kill you.
You got Trigger, Danny, but not me. But I'll get you good.
You got him, Nick. Right through the shoulder. Nick, Phelps got away. And he's locked us in here.
Step back, Scubby. This Tommy gun of Lefty's will take care of the door. There goes the lock, and here goes the door. All right, come on, Scubby.
Nick, the car. They're going to get away.
We'll see about that.
Oh, they're halfway down the drive, Nick.
Maybe we can still stop them.
No, you missed them, Nick. You missed them.
I don't think so. What, Scubby? The curve. They're not taking it.
Golly, Nick, you stopped them, all right.
Yes. That was the secretary at the wheel. I think I winged him.
Hey, we better go down and see if there's anything left of them. Gosh, Nick, with Trigger dead and Lefty and Danny and they're ready for the hospital, and now Phelps and the secretary down there in the wreck, why, it's practically bingo.
Yes, Scubby. I think the gang's finished now. We can phone the state troopers to come take them off our hands. But before I give those rats any first aid, I'm going to make sure Mrs. Anders' baby is all right.
Oh, gosh, the baby. I was almost forgetting him. I wonder if he's okay.
What's that?
Hey, Nick. There he is now. Oh, listen to those yells. I'll say he's all right. He couldn't yell like that if he wasn't.
Didn't like the shooting, Scubby, so he's letting us know about it.
Isn't that just like a baby? He waits till everything is over, and then he starts yelling.
Home on the range, where the deer and the antelope play, where never is heard a
What's the matter, Nick? Your voice give out?
No. He's asleep at last.
Oh, and it's about time, too. He's been yelling ever since we left Phelps' place.
Yes. I certainly hope Patsy has Mrs. Anders at the office when we get there. I'll be glad to give him back to her.
Yeah. Hey, Nick, when Trigger started to tie you up, where'd you get that gun? All of a sudden, it was in your hand, and you were using Trigger for a shield, and bang, 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 like, well, it was just like in the movies.
That gun, Scubby, was my ace in the hole. I planted it behind the cushion of the chair I was sitting in when I first entered the room. It was your gun. The one I got from you before we entered the Phelps house.
Well, may I be kissed by a whale.
Oh, try the baby.
But, Nick, what made you plant the gun anyway?
Well, Scubby, I was suspicious of Phelps from the first. His visit to headquarters the other day put me on guard, but I had no proof. And besides, my main purpose was to learn where the baby was. I was afraid we were stepping into a trap tonight, but I had to take that chance in order to find out exactly what had become of the baby.
Oh, yeah, of course, Nick.
Planting your gun in the chair when we first sat down was a safety precaution.
Well, it sure saved our bacon, Nick, and cooked Mr. Phelps' goose.
Well, I'll certainly be glad when I turn this kid over to its mother. You know, Scubby, it's funny. I almost break my neck trying to find the baby, and then when I do find it, I can't wait until I can get rid of it. Oh, am I glad to be rid of that baby. I don't mind tackling a few gunmen, but I hope I never again have to hold a crying baby for an hour.
Maybe he didn't like home on the range, Nick. You should have tried something else.
That's the only tune Nick knows. Now, Nick, you're not going to get away with it.
Get away with what?
With acting as if you're too tired to talk. You're going to tell me what happened or else.
Yeah, Nick. There's still some things I want to know, too.
Oh, have a heart. Will you? It's 1 a.m.
All right, Nick, I'll be easy on you. Just give me the gist of it, and I'll save my questions until morning.
All right, Patsy. Well, first of all, Phelps was the head of the baby-selling gang, of course.
I'd gathered that.
As a member of the board of the infant's hospital, he got wind of the racket some months ago.
Mm-hmm.
He needed money badly, so he took it over and organized it.
The hospital records were a great help in locating unwanted babies and in contacting couples seeking to adopt babies.
Of course.
Yeah, Patsy, we got all that from Danny, the Frenchman, before the state police came to take him to the state hospital. Phelps and his secretary were both killed outright when their car crashed.
Oh, I see. And, of course, Phelps always worked through someone else.
Yes. Up to the end, practically none of the gang knew his identity because he always gave his orders over the phone. It was only desperation that made him go after Mrs. Anders' baby himself. The same desperation that made him set his trap for us.
And what a trap. Phelps was one smooth article, believe you me.
Yes, you bet he was. Of course, all the elaborate interview between Danny and Phelps was for the purpose of keeping me interested until Lefty and Trigger could get there. Oh, Phelps did have another reason for it, too.
What was that, Nick?
Wanted to draw me out, find out just how much the police and I knew, so that after he killed us, he'd know just what kind of a story to tell Riley to fool him. Yes, from his standpoint, it was a good plan, perfectly worked out. There was only one thing wrong with it.
Well, what was that, Nick?
It didn't work.
Nick.
Oh, now, please let me stop talking. I want to make a suggestion. What do you say we all take a vacation?
Oh, a vacation is just what I need after tonight. Hey, how about you, Patsy?
You took the words right out of my mouth, Scubby. Where would we go, Nick?
Well, how about Greensboro? It's a tiny little town up in the mountains, fishing, hiking, and horseback riding.
Greensboro sounds like another name for heaven.
Mm-hmm. All but that part about hiking and horseback riding. I like to vacation sitting down.
And we can sleep all day and never lift a finger. And there'll be no robberies, no murders, nobody shooting at us. In fact, for a whole week, we'll be able to forget there is such a thing as crime. Well, what do you say?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried.
Good. We'll leave for Greensboro the first thing in the morning.
So Nick and his two associates are going to take a vacation in a little town of Greensboro where there's no crime and no criminals. All they're going to do there is loaf. I wonder what they'd think if they knew that in Greensboro they were going to meet a magician who walks out of locked prison cells at will, and a dead man whose body disappears into thin air the instant after he's murdered. No excitement? Well, for the beginning of a new and thrilling adventure with Nick Carter, listen tomorrow. The Strange Adventures of Nick Carter, Master Detective, features Lon Clark as Nick Carter. Patsy is played by Helen Choate. The stories are written by Bob Arthur and David Cogan, and original music is played by Lou White. The entire production is under the direction of Jock McGregor. Tomorrow night at the same time, listen to the opening chapter of a new and exciting adventure of Nick Carter entitled
Death by Magic, or Nick Carter and the Mystery of the Vanishing Corpse.
The adventures of Nick's adopted son, Chick Carter, boy detective, are broadcast over most of these stations Monday through Fridays at 5:30 p.m. Eastern War Time. Nick's own show, The Return of Nick Carter, a copyrighted feature of Street and Smith Publications, Incorporated, is presented by the Mutual Broadcasting System and is broadcast from our New York studios over most of these stations every evening, Monday through Friday, at 9:15 Eastern War Time. This is Mutual.
Cerebral Cinema hopes you have enjoyed this movie of the mind.